Hey everybody, welcome. And sorry, Bruce, to get you back out in the waiting room. Oh my goodness, I am so sorry. We were just wrapping up a couple of different items for our internal prep. But are you doing good today?
Yeah, doing well, getting ready for storm prep.
I know, and I'm so sorry for asking if you were with OCD. I think I made an assumption just because it was somebody else that was coming into the space, and I was like, wait, did they hire somebody that's going to be on this prep call? So I apologize. I know that you are with Ascension.
No problem.
Cool. Welcome everybody. How's everybody doing? Hey Ryan. Hey Ron.
Hello. Good afternoon.
You doing good today, Ron?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. As good as we can be with what I'm now calling this hurricane anxiety, hurricane and anxiety together.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, we got a lot of work to do over the next 36 hours, it seems. A lot more information to get to. Let's see. Hey, welcome, Renee. Welcome, Fred. Y'all doing good?
I've been better, but I've been worse too. So.
Hey, I appreciate the honesty in that, and I think a lot of people can relate to it.
Especially with oncoming weather, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, that's my dad says it is what it is, and if you could change it, you would. If you could change it, you would. Hey, Earl, how you doing today? Oh, might not be able to come off mute quite yet. That's all right. Hey, Katie. Hey, Twee. Y'all good? Good.
Yep, all good.
Good. And welcome, Ivy and Tara. I know that we had some time ahead of this too to talk, so thank y'all for taking the additional time.
No problem.
And wait a few minutes and get people on the call. Hey, Jack Harris, nice having you on the line today.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Good. We're glad to have you. Glad to have you today. Let me see. Welcome, Dietmar. Welcome, Larry. Y'all doing okay today? Might not be able to come off mute. That's okay. Looks like we've got
Yeah,
Culpepper still connecting to audio.
I having computer
Go
problem,
ahead, please.
audio. I don't know what happened. Too many electronic
Okay.
bits, so I don't know what the problem is, but you finally got me.
I'm here. Larry's here.
Okay. Great. Welcome, y'all.
Hey,
Thanks for being here today.
This is Earl. I'm off mute now.
Nice. Thanks for being here today, Earl. And thank you, Ryan, for modeling that. If you can, go ahead and put your name in the chat bot and your affiliation. That helps us track things just to know who's on the call, and also it's useful for public record too. So there's that logistical component as well. Thank y'all. Oh, hey, Chuck. Haven't seen Chuck Berger with DEQ for a little bit, so it's glad to have him here. Same with Nora. Welcome, y'all. We got Karen Zito. Hey, Steve.
Hey.
Welcome. Okay. Let me see. I think we're waiting, trying to see if Bridget and Ross are on quite yet.
I'm here.
Let me make sure that I don't have any. Hey, Ross, I can't find you on my screen. Sorry.
I came in late.
There you are. All right. We have Bridget yet. Bridget, if you're on, can you come off mute and let me know? I'm looking for you in the participants. Okay, we're gonna wait just another minute and see if we got Bridget. I'm gonna make sure I don't have anything in my messages from her. And then if anybody is having technical issues, I know Dietmar, you mentioned that you were maybe having some audio challenges. You can put those in the chat pod or come off mute. Oh, go ahead.
I believe it's okay. When it first opened up, it would not let me open the audio or the whatever, but now it looks like it's working. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic, great. All right, let me see. Welcome, Delaney. It's nice to have you here as well. I'm going to try to say hello to everybody who's coming on. I think I've got most people. Hey, John, thanks for being here today. And then Tori, thank you for also being here. I didn't know how this was going to work with your class schedule, so thanks. Hey, Devin. We got Jenna Lynn. All right. Ross, do you want me to go ahead and get started with kind of some of the introductory items, and then we'll have Bridget roll on?
Yeah, please do, because, we went through this a lot last year, and a lot of people on this call have other duties as it relates to tropical events. So yeah, I'm assuming people have a lot of stuff going on. So let's make use of time
Totally agree.
as best as we can.
Same page. All right. Well, thank y'all for being here today. So my name is Rachel Sanderson, and I'm the Region 7 Watershed Coordinator for the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. I work at Capital Region Planning Commission. And just thank y'all for being here, because I think Ross had just said, there's certainly a lot that's on people's minds today. We also have Rochelle Trihon, who's with us today. She's going to be our note taker. So really grateful for her. She's part of the team at Capital Region Planning Commission as well. She might have reached out to you about some bike bed stuff in particular. We also have Nicolette Jones and Bradley Spiegel with the Watershed Initiative. They're going to be giving us some program updates today, and also have been helping guide us through this process. We've also Tori Nguyen, who is our intern. She also is doing a work study with LSU with Dr. Thomas Dowsett, so she has also been helpful with this, as well as our transition team. And some of those folks are also on the steering committee. So we have Ronnie Carter, who's been assisting with that, Tara Lambeth, Ivy Matthew, Twee Lee, Chris Dalbum, and Mark Davis, who are with Tulane Waterlawn Policy, John Leo, and Katie Spitaleri with Georgetown Climate Center. And then we also have Clyde Verdun, who is with Spears Group today, who is running Zoom logistics for us. So if you do have any technical issues, so audio, or if you can't see things, put that in the chat pod, and then Clyde can actually work to assist you with that further. So it's a big team for today. And also, there's a lot of people that aren't listed here. So we're just deeply appreciative to everybody who's been helping get this together. Oh, and I might ask everybody, if you can, please go on mute if you haven't already, unless you are speaking. And for folks who aren't steering committee members, or folks who aren't representing on behalf of steering committee members with parishes today, we do ask that you keep your comments limited to the chat pod instead of coming off mute, unless it's during the public comment section, which, as you'll see, we'll have that towards the end of today's discussion. All right, so just a reminder, we do adhere to Louisiana open public meeting laws. And then Clyde, if we're not recording already, or we're recording, yes?
Yes, we're recording.
You can come off mute. Perfect. All right, we are recording this meeting, and so as always, it's going to be available online on CRPC's website at crpcla.org. And if you go to the Region 7 Watershed tab and click on Previous Events Archive, you'll be able to access every single meeting recording, all of our meeting minutes, all of the meeting materials from the conversation today as well. And I did just hear from Bridget, she's having some technical challenges, so I'm going to try to work through some of those with her if I can. We mentioned the opportunity for public comments as well. We mentioned the meeting minutes and also recording this. We're going to do roll call in just a minute. I also understand, usually we like to ask people to use their video camera if possible. I do know that today in particular, especially as we're thinking about Tropical Depression 9 and what that could turn into, people might be feeling a little low energy. So please do what's best for you today. We do have shared agreements for this group, and just want to make sure that we roll through these. So these are for everybody that's interacting and engaging in this space, and especially for our steering committee members. So what are shared agreements? Those are just ways of engaging and really being able to have a mutual space of respect for each other. And so we want to aspire to be brief and meaningful when voicing opinions, seek common ground and understanding, consider what serves the benefit of the entire region, and also when presenting a challenge, offer a solution. And if you're not sure what that solution is, it's okay to say that. There's a lot of really smart folks that are on this call and a part of the steering committee who can actually kind of help us get to that. And also, we might have to revisit these at different points in time. So you might see these a couple different times throughout today. We also have an idea marina because we know that when it comes to flood risk in Louisiana, there's a large variety of topics. And if it doesn't necessarily fit with the topic today, that doesn't mean that it's not important, but it does mean that maybe we want to redirect some really intentional attention to that particular subject when we have time, when we can build it out as a part of an agenda. So just know that we'll be utilizing this idea marina today too. All right, with that, I think we've got Bridget's on the phone now based on what she has just informed me of, but can we go ahead and do roll call? Are we ready to do that, Ross?
Yes, indeed.
All righty. Do I have Mike Enlow and or Ron Savoy with Ascension Parish?
Yes, you got Ron Savoy here, and I also have Miss Ruth Phillips on the line.
Hello, welcome y'all. Tom Stevens and or Fred Rayford with EBR. I think we heard you earlier, Fred, but just want to do it for official purposes.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you.
Thanks, Fred. Do we have James Stewart and or Joni Stone with East Feliciana? All right, and I think we heard from you earlier, Steve. Can you make it official?
Yes, this is Steve with Livingston.
Thanks, Steve. Really appreciate you being here today. I know y'all got a lot going on. Everybody else does too. Earl Mathern, can you make it official for us? I think we heard from you earlier.
Earl Mathern, St. Charles Parish, and I am here.
Thanks, Earl. Appreciate you. We got Major Coleman here with us today with St. Helena.
Yes, Major's here. Thank you.
Thanks, Major. I thought you were that 985. Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
All right, what about Ryan Donahue or LaRousse? I think I saw maybe Ryan Donahue signed in. Can you let us know that you're here?
Yeah, Ryan
Thank you so much for being here today. Thank y'all. Tara, can you let us know officially that you're here?
Hi, Tara's here.
Thanks, Tara. Let me see. Do we have Renee Pastorek as well? I know that he's y'all's alternate. I should say both of these names. Apologies. Okay. All right. There we go. Ross Liner and or Jay Watson. I think we got Ross here.
I am here.
Thank you. All right, Bridget, I know you said your video is not working today, but you got audio?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can. Good. Okay. Good. And if you need any assistance with tech or anything, Bridget, and you're able to put it in the chat pod, or if you can send an email to me and I can forward it to Clyde, we can try to get stuff figured out if that's helpful. We have Bobby Joe Breland and or Alex Sumrall with Washington. Okay. Gary Migo, I think I saw you on the line. I don't know if we got Emily Cobb today, but.
This is Gary. I'm here.
Hey, Gary, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Trying to record all of these too. Of course. And Dietmar and Larry, we heard y'all say hello earlier, but can you say it one more time just for the record?
Larry's here.
Mari's here too.
Thank you. And apologies, y'all. I realized that I missed John Clark with Iberville. We got John on the line with us today. Okay. All right, we'll be on the lookout for them as well. And then Karen Zito and or Diane Baum.
I'm here, Karen Zito.
Hey, Karen.
Hey.
Let me see. What about Ronnie Carter or Kim Coates?
Ronnie Carter's here by phone.
Hey, Ronnie, thanks for joining us today. And thank you for letting me know that you're on the phone as well. That's helpful for facilitation. And then I think last but not least, Ivy Matthew.
Present.
All right, cool. Well, thanks, y'all. It always takes us a long time to get through the role, but that's because we got a big team. So I don't think there's anything bad about that. We do have a quick icebreaker today, y'all, just for fun. So we just wanted to thank y'all for being here with us today and for your flexibility as we shifted back to virtual, and also for your flexibility as we're all thinking about this tropical depression that can enter the Gulf of Mexico basically within the next 36 hours. And so a quick icebreaker that I thought could be fun, and you can put this in chat pod or you can come off mute if you want to, but what did you want to be when you grew up? Did it work out? So I'll start off. I wanted to be a storm chaser. I really thought I was going to be Helen Hunt from Twister. To explain why, I thought that it was a fascinating career. And turns out that I went storm chasing a couple of times, and it's actually quite terrifying. So it did not work out, but I've been using those skill sets for different purposes. Do any of our steering committee members want to come off mute and share? Or is there anybody in particular that wants to share in the chat pod? Maybe Tara or Ivy, since y'all maybe had a little longer to noodle on the question.
Well, I wanted to be an astronaut, and I don't know why, because I'm terribly claustrophobic.
Maybe that's why it didn't work out. It seems really, really valid. How about you, Ivy?
I hate to say it, but I wanted to be a nun.
Ooh.
I know. Isn't
I would
that
love to hear
intriguing?
more about that.
A lot of
is
psychologically, but anyway, nope, didn't pursue that avenue.
Wow. We had somebody else actually, Honora wanted to be an astronaut or a stewardess. I feel like there's perhaps some desire to fly. Karen Zito, a biological engineer. What kind of, for what purpose? Like, did you want to be a doctor? Did you want to develop medicine? Like, what was kind of interesting to you?
All of it until I took my first high level engineering class in college.
Fair.
Then I went into
Fair. Hey, I think it worked out though. I mean, if you wouldn't be sitting here, well, maybe you would be sitting here today, just in a different role, but we're glad that you're here.
Rachel,
Katie, go ahead, please.
This major, I wanted to be a doctor, and but I didn't know much about being a doctor. Then I thought I had to see all this blood and stuff, but then I didn't realize that hey, eye doctor, finger doctor, toe doctor, foot doctor, ear doctor. So, but I didn't pursue being a doctor because I didn't think I could deal with the blood.
I think that's a really valid thing. It takes a really special person to do that work, I think. That's a real specific skill set. But also, if you were a doctor, you wouldn't be here. So I'm glad you're here.
Maybe not.
Yeah. I mean, the pathways that life takes us down. Let's see. Katie wanted to be a lawyer, and she is a lawyer. That's some planning. You know exactly what you want. Nicolette wanted to be an architect and a city planner. And there's an episode about Seinfeld about that. That's funny. John, you want to be a Major League Baseball player. Look at that. And then you decided that you might be better off as a manager. But you're currently a fulfilled baseball fan who's also an environmental lawyer and choral singer. Wow. Earl, you want to be fishing guide and you haven't given it up yet. If you turn into a fishing guide, like if that's your next step in life, please let me know because my dad loves to come down here and go fish.
Will do.
Twee. Yes, there we go. Twee wanted to be a barista. I mean, I feel like you can do some really interesting things being a barista, I'm gonna be honest. But all right, y'all. We know that things are a little heavy today for a lot of folks, and so we just wanted to bring some of that like levity into the space. So it was kind of fun. And we wanted to do that, as a couple of reminders of why we do the work in particular. So we know that August is a month filled with reminders of flood events. Laura last year, Katrina, Isaac, Harvey, summer flood event of 2016. I don't know if there's any other events. And then Ross and Bridget, I didn't know if y'all wanted to say anything today, like thank people for being here or talk anything about any of the particular items on the slide. But we just want to acknowledge that August is a hard month for folks, and we're glad that you're here.
Well, looking at the pictures on the slide, hopefully, these are things that we can try and mitigate in the future where maybe they're not as extensive. We'll always probably, have events like this and, have to be able to react to them. But planning in advance and working together as a region can mitigate a lot of this, that would be great. That's part of the reason why we're here. And I definitely want to, thank the working group for working all the membership structures and everything like that. I know there's a lot of hard work going into that, and you still have a lot of work to do, but again, just wanted to appreciate and say thank you.
You have anything you want to add, Bridget?
No, other than I appreciate everyone, being on the call today. Again, I apologize for being a little bit late, but I was having some technical issues. It seems at least my audio is working, even if video's not.
Yeah, thank y'all. Yeah, and I think Ross, you hit the nail on the head there. What is this group's role, and potentially being able to think a little more proactively about what we can do to at least mitigate some of what we've seen in the past. So just a good reminder for us in the context of the work, because we're not astronauts and we're not baristas, but we're all at this table for a reason today, right? All right, so we're going to go through some updates, y'all. I did want to let y'all know, and I think that we did send this out also via email, but the Watershed Council did approve the regional project recommendation. They approved every recommendation across the state. And so the recommendation that the steering committee put forward was approved. That was for the Jones Creek Detention Project. So my understanding is that the awardees have been notified and things are underway on that. So just want to let y'all know that. We are putting an application with a team that it consists of LSU, Build Baton Rouge, Georgetown Climate Center, New York University, and Capital Region Planning Commission. That's for $300,000. That's really thinking about those future stormwater master plan models that are going to be developed and created through the East Baton Rouge process that HNTB has also been assisting with. And really actually thinking about those in tandem with some vacant, abandoned, and deteriorated properties that exist. I think there's certainly some anecdotal data as well as some other types of data that's more qualitative in nature that suggests that some of those areas might actually be really low flood risk. And some of them might not actually be necessarily ideal. So thinking about what could make sense from a perspective of where could there be strategic green infrastructure, where could there be some strategic development, but it's just a proposal that hasn't been awarded. So we're going to keep everybody posted, and if that gets funded, then we're certainly going to be bringing folks from this group into that space. We know we have a lot of really great partners that are interested in that work. Also just wanted to share with y'all that since we've been doing this work really since October of last year, we've made some progress. And so there's been over $1 million in funds secured, applied for, or in-kind capacity building to the benefit of the region. So that includes the EPA partnership work. So that includes the Georgetown Climate Center partnership work, Environmental Finance Center, as well as the Restore Fund, the Center of Excellence, Restore Center of Excellence grant that was awarded. We do have some pending stuff that's from the NOAA Restore program, and we're hoping that we can give y'all some good news on that. But just wanted to let y'all be aware of that. And then also just wanted to say a big thank you, because a lot of folks that are on the steering committee, as well as folks that are beyond that, has been contributing significantly to that work. And so it wouldn't be possible without y'all. It wouldn't be possible without really a strategic network of individuals who really care about this work, really care about Louisiana, and want to see this work move forward to the benefit of the region and really the entire state. So just thank y'all. Just wanted to give a quick update, and Katie's technically our lead for the Georgetown Climate Center partnered work. So that's at the intersection of affordable housing and flood risk. We are going to have some workshops in mid-October to focus on the build out of the goals and objectives. And so we're going to actually be inviting some folks from this space to participate in those workshops. We do have some folks that are steering committee members who are already on that working group, but we're going to be actually bringing those folks in. And then we're also going to be leveraging some in-network facilitators through Foundation for Louisiana. So those are going to be Louisianans hosting conversations with Louisianans about the work that's going on and getting feedback and thoughts and ideas. So we're really excited about that. Katie, do you have anything you want to add since you're on the line with us?
I think that's a great recap. I think just to echo Rachel's sentiments, we look forward to continuing to engage more of you as we develop sort of this online product that we're putting together. Thanks.
Thanks, Katie. And then with the environmental finance centers, a lot of you filled out the survey that we sent, or your colleagues did. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We actually ended up getting quite a few responses to that survey in particular. And so we're actually working with that team to be able to actually build out the agenda based on the things that y'all said that you needed. So stay tuned. We are going to be planning for that workshop to be the first week of November before the LSU Bama game. I think we might be shooting for the Wednesday or Thursday, but as soon as we have that booked, we will let y'all know. And also the EPA Resilience Roadmap, we're actually integrating that work with the Environmental Finance Center work, as well as the Georgetown Climate Center partner work too. And so essentially that is going to be structured decision-making process that EPA is going to be guiding a group of folks through. We do have some individuals that are also on the steering committee that are a part of that work group. And then also I think really the work of EFCs and Georgetown Climate Center are going to be informing what are some of those bigger items that are coming out of those workshops in particular that we think are going to be some really strategic points to involve in that structured decision-making process. So just know that we're also integrating this work together and weaving it together. There were also a couple of folks who had put in an abstract that are within the regions of Dr. Douthit, Jennifer Lee, who's actually with Georgetown, not Georgetown Climate Center, that is a typo, as well as Manny Patoli, who's with New York University, and Bill BR, and myself. But we had put together an abstract to be able to submit to the Journal of American Planning Association, and it was accepted. So there's going to be some research that's coming out that's going to be interesting, and we should be seeing some interesting research coming out of Dr. Douthit's work as well. For situational awareness, Lindsay Lamana has been working to wrap up her thesis, and so once that's done, we'll have a report and a presentation to y'all. We do have Dewberry signed on to be able to do bi-monthly updates. So it'll come to our meeting in October, and then every other bi-monthly, every other month after that. So just some quick updates. Do any of our steering committee members have updates? And then if not, we're going to transition into the membership structures. Or anybody else, if you have updates to put in the chat pod, please feel free to do so. They can be trainings, opportunities, things for people to be aware of. Okay, well, I'm not hearing anything. So, excuse me, we actually have 3 more slides before we get to the membership structures, and before y'all get to hear much less of my voice and more of the transition teams. So just a quick recap, just in case some folks are joining us for their first time, or if it's been a while. August of October from 2020, we set the vision, values, and goals for the region. We also talked about root causes of flooding and opportunities for addressing that. Then through the winter months, we really thought about what kind of regional work that the region would like to do. We got some initial feedback on governance models, as well as this idea or concept about membership structures. Earlier in this year, January through March, we adopted that provisional governance recommendation. We discussed that round 1 selection process. We also discussed potential funding resources. That was that white paper that was presented by Steve Piku, one of the consultants with adaptation strategies that is working with OCD. And then from April to June, we voted on that round 1 regional project selection process. We discussed the governance recommendation as it had been updated, and then that was adopted. And then last month, we adopted our recommendation for the round 1 regional project, which was accepted. And I think Bridget and Ross, I'm going to toss it over to you for the LWI mission and the vision. And Bridget, I know that you're not able to see things, so if you want to pass, let me know, and Ross can take these on.
Sure, I'll read the mission, and Bridget can let us know. To reduce the flood risk, improve floodplain management throughout the state, and maximize the natural and beneficial functions of floodplains. And Bridget, I'll just go ahead and go with the vision. Region 7 envisions a future with less flood risk, healthier natural environments, and resilience practices that are responsive to the needs of our communities and to our evolving environment. So as we move forward, just things to consider in the back of your mind. Well, I see we have the, Rachel, I guess I'll go ahead and just take this for a second. The executive order from John Bell Edwards creating the watershed initiative, committees and councils in regions across the state And we're going to be talking about today is how can we all work together, what the membership structures look like, and how we can interact across the region, across the state, with various partners, whether it's universities, nonprofits, and parishes amongst ourselves. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thanks, Ross. Appreciate you setting kind of a little bit of the tone for us. And John Clark, I do see that you're here. Thank you for being here. We know that folks got a lot going on today in particular, so just thank you. All right, so we're gonna go over the membership structures, y'all. And the transition team and myself are really excited to be able to talk with y'all about these today. You know, I think it was a really interesting process. There's a lot of time spent, there's a lot of research done. And then having a mix of individuals who are part of the steering committee, and then also folks who aren't, but have some technical expertise to actually assist with that. Just really want to say appreciation to them. So you're going to be hearing a lot from those folks today. So in a couple of slides, basically I'm going to set the tone, talk about the process and how we got here, and then I'm going to pass the torch. So just want to set some expectations for today. And so we really went back and also looked at the governance recommendation too. And a lot of what was talked about in there was capacity building, right? Capacity building was kind of the biggest thing that kept coming up over and over again in technical assistance and networking, which are kind of subsectors within that capacity building. So what does capacity building mean? Well, it's really an investment in the effectiveness and future sustainability of organizations. Like this is an investment in the folks who are at the table here and making sure that there is a future track and sustainability that makes sense for each of those. And everybody's showing up to the table with a different capacity need, right? Not everybody's starting from the same place, and maybe not everybody ends at the same place. Well, maybe it's not an ending process at all, right? It's really ongoing. And so what does it look like when it's successful? It actually strengthens an organization's ability to fulfill its mission over time. And so that means also that it enhances the organization's ability to have a positive impact on lives and communities. And so just as we kind of started off with that reminder about why we do the work today, going back to what that positive impact on lives and communities looks like based on how well we can do capacity building, I think is really the focus. It's really what we've been talking about today and in the past. We're going to actually review the draft documents together. Everybody should have those draft documents. And I'm going to kind of peek behind the curtain here really quickly, y'all, and actually pull up those slides. So excuse me for 1 second. But we're going to go over these documents. I'm going to put them in the chat pod. Everybody should have received those. There was a listserv message that went out. They've been on our website. The steering committee members got them last Thursday or Friday. Can't remember which specific day, so apologies for that. But everybody should have had those documents. If you had time to review them, that would have been ideal. And then also, if there wasn't time, we understand, and we're going to do our best to walk y'all through those today. So let me put this in the chat pod. Thank y'all for coming on a web browsing journey with me. Let's see. And so, you know, ideally, and this is ideal, right? This is ideally. This is not saying that this is what's going to happen. Ultimately, we want to get feedback from y'all. But it would be really great if today we could end the discussion with one structure that's modified or a couple of different ideas to bat around. Really the goal here is to keep the ball moving. We want to keep that ball moving, keep the conversation going. And feedback that we'd like to hear, we really want to hear the overall impression, how to improve the structures, concerns, how to be more explicit about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that was a specific recommendation by one of our reviewers, and potential role within the structure. Like, we really want to hear about that. We don't necessarily, you know, I think what's not the main focus of today's discussion is wordsmithing or really thinking about specific incorporation of entities or organizations. And we're going to discuss the bylaws during our September meeting. So just know that this is one really big component of those bylaws, y'all. And this is an ongoing conversation. And so I also wanted to provide a reminder, right, because this has been a part of a process. So during our February 25th meeting, we came to the steering committee and we said, hey, you know, we know that this is going to be a really important aspect of this work. And that's why we're setting up a working group. And so that group, the steering committee said, yeah, we think that makes sense. And we had asked for folks to be a part of that group. We took volunteers from that. And so the volunteers from that, from the steering committee, were, at the time, they were Devin Foyle, which then transitioned to Renee Pasterek, which then transitioned to Tara Lambeth because she took on Devin's role. So she's part of that transition team, and we'll go over the members in just a minute. But Ronnie Carter also volunteered to be part of that group. And then Ivy Matthew also joined. And then we can go over the other members who also make up that group. Karen and Bridget both volunteered as reviewers, and both of them had really, really helpful feedback that we worked to incorporate into the documents that y'all received last week as well. And then, as always, our intention is to come back to the steering committee whenever we have things that are ready and prepared to be able to have that conversation with folks, to be able to get the feedback. And then also, I just want to make sure that people know that participating as a part of that working group, that's an open door. So if you want to engage in that way and get your hands a little bit more into the sausage making, if you will, it's an open invitation. And we also just want to make sure that you understand the expectation that it does require more time. So the process for developing these structures, so it really started last year. In 2020, we started gathering feedback on potential member structures. So if we think about that December 15th discussion that we had, mid-December last year, we had those 3 kind of bubble graphics and diagrams. We started gathering feedback really pretty intensely from that moment in time. From January to March, we started to really think about recruiting for that transition team. We presented the idea to the steering committee. We were formulating that idea and really making sure that we had a mix of steering committee members as well as folks who are experts, folks who understand bylaws and things of that nature, folks who have worked with the development of multiple different iterations of boards, commissions, committees over their careers and time. From April to July, that transition team started to meet. And so really I had to catch that group up to speed. We identified the leads for the bylaws because we knew that there needed to be a little bit of ownership around those, as well as the membership structure. And I would say Katie and Twee and Ivy have had especially significant roles on really thinking about that. In addition to the other folks that are on the transition team, we worked on those draft documents, and then we kept working on those iterations of those documents. And then those documents were, finalized is a strong word here, but they were ready for review. So from that moment, we actually started kind of getting review from our folks. So Bridget and Karen, who are our reviewers in that process, started to get feedback. I had conversations with folks that are both local as well as folks that are doing regional work at different places across the nation to be able to kind of see how that tracks and how it compares with other places that are similar and dissimilar to Louisiana. And that leads us to where we are today. So this has really been an iterative process. It's been a long process and a lot of work has went into this. And so without further ado, I think I'm just really excited to present to y'all the members that are a part of this transition team, and I really want to pass the torch over to them. And I think one quick thing, Ronnie is listed on here, and he's not going to necessarily be presenting a lot of the content today, but just want to make sure that he had the chance to introduce himself and who he is, and then we can get started. So Ronnie, you're first on our list. Do you want to do a quick introduction of yourself, and then we'll go down the list?
Yes, am I unmuted now?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Yes, I'm Ronnie Carter with the Punch Train Conservancy. I've been there about 20 years now, and I didn't have a lot to contribute to this transition team. And the reason is because everybody else on there was so good at what they do. So yeah, that's where I'll stand with that.
Thanks, Ronnie. And we'll just go ahead and go. As soon as that person ahead of you finishes, please feel free to introduce yourself. So we'll go to Tara.
Hi, I'm Tara Lambeth. I'm with St. John Parish. I do floodplain management, coastal management, water management.
Hi, I'm Ivy Matthew, and I'm born and bred in Louisiana. The Mississippi waters and the Bayou water run through my veins, and I'm currently retired. I have a background in HR, but and I proudly sit on the St. John Coastal Advisory, and I'm excited about, as a just a general public person, just excited that we're expanding the table and expanding this discussion to do outreach to others. So I'm excited to be part of this. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Thuy Lee. I am a senior research fellow at the Tulane Institute on Water Resources Law and Policy. I work with Chris Stahlbaum and Mark Davis, and I'm excited to be presenting this to you guys today.
Hi, I'm John Leo. I'm I guess I'll say freelance environmental lawyer and consultant for over 40 years, mostly from California. I've been in Baton Rouge for the last 15 months and different parts of the US between California and here. I also have, in addition to baseball, a fascination with governance and structures, government structures. I've done a lot of nonprofit board work as well as corporate governance work. And it's a pleasure to be part of this group. I feel honored. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'll close us out. My name is Kay Spiglieri. I'm a senior associate and attorney with the Georgetown Climate Center. We're a nonprofit affiliated with Georgetown University in the DC area. I lead our coastal adaptation and resilience work. And even though we're based in DC, we work nationally. And I've had the privilege of getting to know some of you, and we'll look forward to continuing to learn more about you all and Region 7 as we go forward with this and other work. Thank you.
Okay, I get to kick this off by asking everybody, are you ready to take this journey in your pirogue or canoe? Notice the theme is going to be water. But anyway, my name is Ivy, and we're going to be talking about the membership structure. And I like to kick it off with a slogan that says, hold on to your oars, because we are entering uncharted waters with the intention of challenging our paradigms. And again, this is a paradigm shift for a lot of us, because we can be seeing this as giving up power. We can be seeing this as, well, that's not the way it's done. And what we've been doing is working fine. But here we're challenging our paradigm to make sure that we expand the table of what I'm labeling the watershed collaborative table. We're expanding we're adding place settings to add more people. And that's the ultimate goal. Before I go into the bullets, that's what I want to frame for us, this conversation, is that we're expanding the place settings. And as many of you already know, nature knows no borders. So we have designed two structures, and we'll be presenting two structures today for you that will push and expand boundaries, which will be aiding us in bridging our technical assistance in our region, our capacity building in our region, as Rachel outlined, and networking within our region. Again, this is a concept that's a broader table, really. It's just, I remember Mr. Coleman talking about being fearful, not having enough resources for his town, his parish, because they may not be as affluent in tax bases as other parishes. Well, this now will afford him or anybody else to say we have a collaborative table that can come and help solve our problems, because the ultimate goal is to build a resilient and sustainable community. And just note, before I can kick into the bullets, we're going to be doing, and as Rachel said, a consensus exercise at the end of the presentation. So some of the thinking that went behind all of this, both of the structures that will be presented will provide a direct space for access to technical experts on the ground knowledge and resources that are to benefit the region. These are also meant to strike a balance between the human experience of flooding, engineering, planning, and environment. And right here, I'd like to just pause and say, for me, the part that I've been frustrated with, and I'm glad that we're addressing it very directly and intentionally, is that we're bringing the human experience. So that's that part of that expansion of the table. Predominantly in the past, engineering and planning have done a good job of doing their role, but now we want to bring other voices, other talent and expertise, like, for example, as you've already read, like a community representative like myself, or an environmental conservation seat, or health and social sector. So these are the type of expansions that we're talking about. And also, we're being very explicit and intentional in incorporating of the frontline communities, equity, being inclusive, and diversity to work towards procedural and substantive equity. This is so key, that the people that have been marginalized or left out, whether intentional or not, now they're going to have a table and have input to make a better outcome and output, because we got to do something different. Because if we keep doing the same thing and expecting a different result, we all know what that's called. And so the other part of this is that the administration of the structure, the way we're going to administer it, based on how we've done this so far, will balance the need of many voices within the space. So, I'm excited to be part of this, and that the seat at the table is expanding. And with that said, I'll turn it over to Tara.
So these are really in alignment with fulfilling the executive order we just looked at, the guiding principles framework, the long-term vision for sustainability and resilience. It also goes along with the community development block grant mitigation action plan and the regional governance recommendation for Region 7. So we're really seeing this as kind of a collaboration, an opportunity for networking, flexibility, and adaptability, little freedom to do something new and have a holistic regional approach to water management. For example, I'm the chair of the Water Collaborative Board, which is a nonprofit in New Orleans that focuses on water management. And we have planners and engineers and water board members on that board. But then we also have a photographer and we have an accountant. So it's really kind of this holistic approach to that type of work.
Okay, so I have the unfortunate role of following Tara and Ivy's wonderful introduction. So for this, I will be talking to you guys about the first membership structure that we came up with. So the first one we have, there's going to be the voting membership, which you can see the membership includes 13 actual members with voting capacity. There are various seats. As they said, we have had engineers in the past, but we believe that there's also a space there to provide support from academia, from the environmental justice perspective. And so the voting membership will consist of 13 members. There is going to be a quorum of 7 required to proceed with an action. And within that voting membership, there's going to be 3 executive positions, the chairperson, the vice chair, and the secretary. And I wanted to talk to you guys briefly about the responsibilities of each. So the chairperson will generally preside over the meetings, set the agenda, and coordinate communication between the members, as well as be the face of the committee in this instance. The vice chair, of course, will assist in all of those roles and perform tasks as delegated by the chairperson. And then the secretary actually plays a pretty important role because considering the nature of the committee, it will likely be subjected to open meetings laws. So of course, we'd want to adhere to that. And that comes with a lot of procedures and requirements. So the secretary would be documenting and setting procedures and making sure that the committee adheres to those regulations. On the topic of non-voting membership, we also wanted that core group of 13 to be supported. And we also wanted to have the parish's influence and expertise in all this, and because of course, it affects them. So John and Tara will talk a little bit more about the non-voting roles for that, and I will turn it over to them.
Thank you, Tui. So I would like just to highlight the specification in membership structure number 1 of the 20 non-voting members, and in particular, the 13 of those 20 who are designed to come from at least one from each parish. It can be an appointed parish-wide employee or staffer, or a municipal employee from a city within the parish. But the idea is, and you'll see that this is distinguished from the non-voting membership structures in structure 2. There is a guarantee in membership structure number 1 that every parish within the region will have the opportunity to select one of its own to serve as a non-voting member. That is, again, not the case with number 2. One other important distinction to recognize between the two membership structures: the membership structure 1, as you can see, has 13 voting members. Membership structure 2 has 11. And the differences are that, with the exception of the academic or university seat/seats and the legal seat in membership structure 1, the voting membership of membership structure 2 is identical in every other respect to the voting membership structure in number 1. You just have the deletion of a legal seat and an academic seat in number 2. The balance of substructures, if you will, in the two membership structures is the same. There is a voting membership core. There is a non-voting membership core that is divided into a couple of different units. But the goal is to have, and I'll harken back to what Ivy said earlier, is to have diversity and inclusivity as the voting membership of each of these structures. This is, as you all know, you've been present at this from the creation, a multidisciplinary and multi-jurisdictional effort. It is not, and as Ivy also said, nature knows no borders. The watersheds course through the parishes on their way from the north down to the Gulf. Each parish is affected somewhat differently than every other parish, and there are differential impacts within each parish, depending upon what the watershed's characteristics happen to be. And because this was prompted by Governor Edwards' executive order, recognizing that non-hurricane events can have equally catastrophic impacts as hurricane events on the watershed system of the state, as well as all of its people, the need to have as many different, within reason, of course, as many different kinds of citizenry and expertise with voting membership on these structures, supplemented by representation from non-voting members. Let me ask, Tara, do you have anything else you would like to add about that?
Yeah, that there's also going to be 7 partners or experts working at the regional, state, or national level, selected through a separate application process that asks them to identify current work and what they're partnering on, and that there will be moments where working groups will need to be formed between the local government, the partners, and the voting membership as different things come up.
And that's a very important thing to remember for both membership structures, is that that there is fluidity and flexibility within the membership structures that can come from, and frankly will come from, the membership, voting and non-voting memberships decisions that particular needs require an ad hoc working group, as Tara has just described, that will have a very limited charge for a limited period of time to do focused work that will add to the decision-making needs of the membership. And that allows really for ad hoc kinds of input on an as-needed basis.
I'd also like to add that the bylaws themselves will allow for adjustments of the structure if needed in the future via amendments. So as you're thinking about this and considering this, please keep in mind that while this membership structure may be what's best for this current time, is not something that is set in stone permanently. So it will be open for growth and development as, you know, our coastlines and our state develops as needed.
So this second structure, like we mentioned before, looks a lot like the first one, except for 2 seats are taken out, the academic seat. And also there's non-voting members that are only 9. They're local, regional, state, or national level who are doing work or partnering with the region or providing technical assistance. This could include parish staffers or elected officials. And again, the non-voting membership is selected through a separate application process that the applicant has to identify their current work and what they're partnering on.
Are we going to open this for discussion? This is Dietmar.
Dietmar, yes, we are in just a minute. I think we're going to go over the next slide, which are the differences. And I think we only have maybe 2 or 3 more slides after that. So thank y'all for hanging in there. All right.
Yeah, so just quickly, this breaks down the differences between membership structure 1 and membership structure 2. 13 voting members versus 11, 20 non-voting versus 9, and then number 1 having the 13 local government representatives and the 7 partners. Number 2 having the 9 non-voting partners or experts that could be a bunch of different people. So that's kind of the breakdown.
So, thanks, Tara. I'm going to take a couple minutes to talk about how work groups could work in the current sort of draft of the bylaws and thinking. So with these work groups, the idea here is, as we mentioned, you all would sort of start off and consider what you want your sort of core membership structure to be for the committee. But ultimately, that membership may need to sort of grow and change in terms of additional needs you may be able to have to adapt to in the future. Or maybe there are opportunities to increase engagement with different types of groups, whether that's members of frontline communities, or maybe you need opportunities to bring in different technical expertise beyond that sort of core membership structure. That's really where the work groups come in. And the idea here is really to augment the expertise, resources, and sort of abilities of the council to be able to adapt and grow to the different things that might become before you. With this, ultimately, this kind of structure should be familiar to sort of the work that you all have been doing sort of since the Regional Steering Committee was wrapped up. As Rachel has put together this very great graphic on the screen, I've had the privilege, as I said, of working with some people through the Protecting Our Resilient Waters of Louisiana work group in the top right-hand corner. The idea with this, though, is that as you all sort of set up and start a potential regional committee in the future, you're not going to be able to necessarily foresee every need that you may have, every area of technical expertise, or any sort of challenges or opportunities that you're going to come your way. So when we were designing the bylaws and sort of thinking about this in tandem with the core membership structure, the idea here was not to try and limit you all or to try and foresee, maybe these are the 5 different types of work groups we need. So in the bylaws, we're going to explicitly state, here are the 5 different types of work groups we need, and then sort of box you in to not be sort of adaptable in the future. So really with the work groups, it's an opportunity to give the committee the authority to set up work groups in the future, but not sort of specify exactly what those work groups have to be for, or setting up a limited number of technical standing work groups that may not be able to suit the needs that you all have in the future. So how will this work? So the idea with the work groups that I should first lay out is that they are not independent of the committee. Instead, they're sort of like creatures or functions of the committee itself. They're intended to help the committee do work for the benefit of Region 7. To that end, the committee would ultimately identify a need around setting up a potential work group and then vote based on a quorum or majority of the members of the committee to establish a work group. Each work group would work or operate around a specific or discrete task and ultimately operate under procedural rules and guidelines set by the committee. So for example, let's say you have a forthcoming funding proposal and you need outside engineering expertise that's not on the core committee membership. So you want to set up a work group, but you need them to be able to work within 3 months to give you a recommendation. Then you can sort of set up the work group within those guidelines. Once a work group is established based on a vote of a committee, they can meet independently and operate. And then also this is a great opportunity to bring in people who are outside that core committee membership. So that way you can engage others within Region 7 and bring in expertise as needed. Once the work group has completed its charge as set forth by the committee, it has to come back to the committee to really bring up and showcase the work that it has done. Some of the work that might come from these work groups might just be providing supplemental technical expertise. So maybe they look into something that doesn't require a vote, or it could be something that should be brought to the committee's attention for a vote. And therefore, it would ultimately only potentially leave or come out of the committee if the committee approves work products or ideas or recommendations that the work group has done. I think the last thing I'll note procedurally is thinking about with these work groups, the idea is to make sure that the committee has advanced notice of any work that they've done and time to process and really understand any work that has come out of work groups. And so anything that potentially requires a vote or consideration by the committee cannot be brought to the committee and voted on by the committee in the same meeting. Our hope is that this is really an opportunity for collaborative work between committee members and work group members. And so trying to set that up in the procedural rules of the bylaws, again, to make sure that work groups can be flexible, adaptable, and really suit the ongoing and emerging needs of the full committee itself.
Okay, this is Ivy again. And since everyone's anxious to get and they're bidding at the chops to ask some questions, I'm just simply going to say that we are going to have an application process that we're developing that's going to focus on the key, at least 5 key components, ability, starting with number 5, the ability to collaborate. Do they represent diversity and inclusion of the application process? We're going to look at that. Do they bring skill sets and knowledge that aligns with our mission, vision, values, and goals? And if for the different key function seats that they'll be sitting on, do they have the skill sets or the talent, and more importantly, the desire versus obligation? As an HR expert, we just don't want somebody warming the seats or just a warm body effect, but we want truly engaged people that's going to drive us to a more resilient and sustainable community and impact in a positive way, whatever the issue that we're tackling. So with that, I'll turn over to Tara.
While Tara is gathering her bearings, I want to talk briefly about the conflicts of interest aspect of our application process. So of course, considering ethics issues, we want to avoid a conflicts of interest that will be a requirement during the application process, where there's a disclosure requirement where each applicant would have to disclose their affiliations and their employers. After a member is seated and they're on the committee itself, we're anticipating that there should be a required disclosure on a yearly basis is what we're thinking right now, just to ensure that there are no existing conflicts of interest after the member has been seated. So we're using the state code of ethics as the minimum baseline. However, in the bylaws, we will be discussing the conflicts of interest in more detail, specifically the definition of it and what kind of actions and relationships would constitute a conflict of interest. So if you guys have any questions about that, we'll be happy to field them after the presentation is done.
John, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that specific section before we moved into the discussion piece?
Only that if for those of you who want to look more specifically at what the state code of ethics entails, it's Article 42.42 of Louisiana Revised Statutes, particularly sections 1111 through 1121. and Tui's correct, that made the most sense as the existing body of Louisiana ethics applicable to governmental entities to start with. And I think it provides a very, very good framework from which to look at perhaps some more particulars that we would want to have in the bylaws or suggest for consideration in the bylaws as well.
All right, well, thank you so much to our transition team. And I'm also gonna, we're gonna be having them come on and off mute at certain points in time to answer questions. And I know that we have things in the chat pod. And so some of these things are gonna be addressed by the transition team. Some of these things are gonna be addressed by myself. Some of these things are gonna be addressed by OCD. And so just know that there's like a pretty big group of folks that are gonna be interacting today. So I think we'll start with the chat pod, but I saw how will this be implemented. Nicolette, I think that you had answered that in the chat, but can you also, would you mind coming off mute and talking a little bit more about that? And Nicolette, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Oh, I had my double mute going. Sorry.
Oh.
Okay. So all of the 8 steering committees submitted your recommendations just recently, about a month ago. And you touched on membership structure, but broadly. And I think that's kind of how, if we do have enabling legislation that enables each of the regional coalitions, that whatever is outlined in there regarding membership will likely be broad. And I can't speak to the detail or even to the content of the enabling legislation because we're not there yet. We received your recommendations, and now the state is kind of, or the councilors are speaking with the governor's office, and the legislation will ultimately come from the legislature. So that process hasn't really unfolded yet, so I can't really speak to it. But we do anticipate that if there is enabling legislation, that any kind of membership question would likely be broad. It could be more specific. And we see that the details in each region on, how it's composed, how the coalition is composed, what are the voting structures, or what's the voting paradigm, and how are members screened, or how are they appointed, or how do they apply? We expect that all of that's detailed in the region's bylaws. And so what's happening now, what you all are doing, is kind of happening in all of the other regions. You're looking at the details and looking at drafting bylaws and kind of configuring how that membership will take place. And that's your role as a steering committee, is to kind of guide how the coalition will be assembled and put together. And so again, we kind of expect you to come up with some draft bylaws, but this first year that the coalition is being stood up, we expect there to be some fine tuning and deliberation. So yeah, that's kind of how we envision this process playing out. And again, thank you all for being part of the process.
Thanks, Nicolette. And I think, there was a question also about how this proposals compare with other regions, and then we can go to Ruth Phillips. So I didn't know if you had anything to say there, Nicolette. I know that we're further ahead in this process in comparison to a lot of others across the state. So
yeah, right now I can't really speak to many of the details, but I can speak to what was broadly submitted in each of your recommendations. And I think there was some variation. Some regions said we wanted to make sure that most of the members on the coalition represented public agencies within the watershed, and others said they wanted it to be a mix of public agency representatives, but also members of the general public or with kind of different affiliations besides being affiliated with like a public institution or local government. And then we also saw some detail from Region 5 with regards to voting. And voting was kind of based on the percentage of population in the watershed region, per parish. So there is some variation, but I kind of imagine all of this is in flux. So I can't give you very much specifics at this time, but as the regions kind of are working and as you all are working, if you'd like, we can share kind of what's being drafted in each of the regions, if that is what you'd like to see.
I think that would be helpful, Nicolette, if we can get that. And one thing that I want to add too is within that voting membership, y'all, I think one thing that I just want to make sure is clear is that the transition team fully recognizes that there are going to be elected officials as well as individuals who work for parishes that would apply for those positions. That's the hope. And I think ultimately, having people in those seats, not out of obligation, but out of desire is really one of the other things that people are thinking about too. So Ruth, I know that you said that you have a statement from Parish President Hoymine and Ascension. So I want to make sure that we get to that. Would you be comfortable with coming off mute? I know that you said that you were here today representing the parish along with other folks. So
Yeah, I think y'all can hear me. Hopefully.
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Excellent. Let me just pull this up quick. It got brought up to our attention about the membership and stuff actually last night, and reaching out to several of the other parish presidents in this region. They also were a little unaware, maybe all of us unintentionally, with the mirage of emails that we get, and perhaps it got overlooked. So as he spoke to some of them, he had prepared this, so I'm just going to read his statement on his behalf. With the 2016 storm being the basis of the Louisiana Watershed Initiative to put money into projects that help prevent catastrophic devastation in our communities from floodwaters. No one has more experience and understanding of the watersheds and drainage structures than the local government officials and the representatives sent to represent them. For that very reason, Ascension Parish believes that the voting body should be those members of local government who have the direct knowledge of the drainage issues in their region. I would also recommend that the academic, environmental, health, and social sector and planning be the body to provide thoughts, ideas, and input to the local government appointees to assist everyone to make better decisions, but should not have a vote on these crucial drainage decisions and allocation of critical dollars to fund projects that save lives, property, and the health and safety of the residents of our communities. For these reasons, Ascension Parish will be casting a vote of no for this proposal and asking our neighboring parishes to follow suit in Region 7. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Rachel, I have,
thank you
this
so
is
much,
Steve.
Ruth.
This is Steve.
Sure,
Kissel.
sure. Can I say one thing really quick? We're not voting today, Ruth. So I just want to make sure that that's clear to everybody. There's no decision to be made today. There's a consensus-based exercise. So apologies, Steve. I just wanted to make sure that that was clear to everybody.
Thank you.
Well, and I have something that's somewhat a companion. I know it was represented in the beginning that these governing structures align with the governor's executive order, but in fact they do not align. There are 4 different parts of Section 3 in the governor's order that mention the political subdivisions, indicating that his intent was for them to be an integral part of this structure. And if you look at subsection E of Part 3, it actually says that the state, its various jurisdictions, and political subdivisions to coordinate at a statewide and watershed level. So it actually indicates that the political subdivisions are the third leg of the 3 driving forces. Both of the options given to us at this point If they don't completely ignore the political subdivisions, they minimize them. And therefore, the two structures as presented do not meet the spirit and intent of the governor's executive order.
Thank you, Steve. May I ask a follow-up question? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure. So I'm curious, could you tell me a little bit more and elaborate more on how political subdivisions are being removed from the structures, maybe in particular with respect to membership structure 1?
Well, and as I said, they should be an integral part and are actually in part 3, one of the 3 driving forces. If you're not a voting member, you are no longer a decision maker. You are an advisor, which is contrary to the intent of especially 3E.
May I jump in briefly? I would like to emphasize that so the parishes are not explicitly being excluded, nor do we intend to exclude them. The only difference is that there's not a specific seat reserved to the parish members. They are absolutely welcome to apply to be in the position of the voting members. Nowhere in the application process will they be excluded from applying. So I would just like to clarify that if that came across as that, but we have no intention of excluding the parishes.
Hey, this is Ryan. I'm sorry. This is Ryan.
I just wanted to address that particular comment. It's one thing for us to be able to apply and ask to be part of, but it's another thing when you look at the entirety of the order, the executive order, where it indicates that we're supposed to be an integral part. We shouldn't have to be asked to be part. We should automatically be made an integral part of the structure.
Extension concurs.
Yeah, this is Ryan with St. James. I agree with Steve and Ruth. As a regional watershed, we'd like to ensure that each parish is represented in the structure. The only way to do that is to have each one of them with a voting person on the body. In the proposed membership structures, the parishes could possibly be left out of the voting membership. So if you have a bunch of people voting on it and my parish is not represented, I don't feel like I'm fully representative. Each parish should be representative, have a representative, and it should have a voting member, not particularly a staffer, but someone appointed by the parish. It could also be ratified by the legislative body, but it should be each parish should have someone as a voting body and have representation.
Thanks, y'all. Another follow-up question that might help me as well as transition team kind of better understand some of the feedback and where to kind of move forward from here is what do y'all care the most about voting on? I heard somebody bring up allocation of funds earlier. And I think based on our governance structure that we put together, that there wasn't necessarily a desire to vote on projects for this group. Again, we talked about capacity building, so that go ahead, please.
This is Earl. I can address that, and I also have a statement from my parish president. I think all of it goes together. Whether you're talking about best management practices for future development, whether it talks about minimum rules for subdivisions or minimum or coordinating multi-jurisdictional projects. Those are all the things that we said we could look at, including funding. And that's going to fall under the statement I'm about to make. St. Charles Parish, this is from my the executive group, including the parish president. St. Charles Parish is simply not going to support any membership structure that doesn't have the local governments as the voting body, period.
Hi, this is Bridget. I have to also reiterate what everyone has already said. My parish president has also spoken in accordance with exactly the message and mission that everyone else has shared here recently. And in looking at the structures that was provided by the transition team, I know at one of our last meetings, we discussed having a regional committee. And usually in nature, committees are small. They need to be somewhat restrictive just to be able to get work done in accordance. However, I think originally the steering committee was tasked with coming together to come up with structures for maybe a coalition. And there is a difference. I know sometimes it's the wordsmith, but really there can be a difference between a coalition versus a committee, whereas a coalition allows for more membership and more engagement, more inclusive, and it allows more people to actually be part of a voting body if they are an active coalition member. So just something maybe for the transition team to consider or think about is doing it, incorporating maybe one of the structures that we have, maybe structure 1, where you actually show you've got 13 voting members that are those types of experts that really need to be vetted and really have an application, and know that we as a group are looking at the expertise that we need to give guidance for, whether it's regulatory aspects for best practices regarding watershed level stormwater management collectively. But I think that you also, again, need to have the representation, so you have the buy-in from the local municipalities, the local governance, those parishes that represent this actual region, to be at the table and have voting representation as well, which collectively would make you have 26 potential voting members or more. So yeah, I think there's got to be a way to collaborate and maybe pull things together that would make this more appealing to the group as a whole, and still keep with the integrity of having the right information, the right expertise, giving guidance and moving forward. But you would also show that you have the representation and the buy-in from the communities that are being represented at each level.
Hey, Rachel, this is Ross. How many parishes do we have in this region?
13.
All right, so it's pretty simple, quite clear in my mind. If we reserve the voting membership for 13 of the parishes, we still fill those roles that are presented in the membership structure with those disciplines. You may have to submit 5 or 6 names from each parish based to cover those types of disciplines, because a parish like St. Tammany Parish can probably submit 13 of them, and we get picked one off that 13 list. That's fine with us. Tangipahoa, or a smaller parish like Ascension, St. John, Washington, who has less just population, they may not have all 13, but I'm sure they do. So if everyone was to submit as many applications as they can for one of those disciplines, so the most I would be able to submit would be 13, but I know I'm only getting chosen one. So if I can cover each discipline on 13 different, submissions, and I know I'm gonna get picked one out of it, and we can fill all those roles, seems to be pretty easy to me.
I think otherwise. I think I kind of agree with both ways it's being looked at, but the 13 parishes, they should be able to appoint who they want. Each parish appoints who they want. The applications should be for the non-voting members that are going to give reference to them to base their votes later on, to help them with technical advice. I think the 13 parishes, so my parish president was voted by all the people in St. James Parish. So the majority voted a parish president. He represents the people. So if he picks somebody to represent the parish, and then the legislative body, being the councilman in the parish, ratify that selection, I would pretty much feel that our people selected that person, and that's who they want representing them. And it doesn't have to be a person in employment with the parish. It could be anyone from the community of St. James Parish that'll represent St. James Parish. And if you have 13 representatives from each parish, you're ensuring that each parish is represented in the region.
Rachel, I want to get my last
Yeah,
comment.
St. Charles is on too.
I want to just mention that, as I stated early on, I felt like from day one we were looking at the membership issues here in the voting, like more than anything, is that I can't imagine us not having some representation as a voting member of the board, particularly when the parishes and or the representative at this point has to deal with the general public that we're dealing with in our parish, and we listen to it every day. We're going to know more about what the issues are than anybody else at that point. And everybody has to represent their own parish, and I get that. But while I don't have a problem with the concept and what we're trying to accomplish, I just feel like that if I couldn't believe, I couldn't hardly stand not having an opportunity to be able to vote for what I believe our parish needs and not get that opportunity to do so. I know I will be dealing with all the other parishes, and that's fine. I think the overall goal is to look at it as a regional concept anyway. And I think EBR and I know for sure Ascension and Everville, we're trying to do that right now. So all I would say is that, and I think this needs to be relooked at and probably needs to be restructured some because I know East Baton Rouge Parish, and I already chatted with my mayor, and she basically indicated that she wants to have somebody representing our parish, and that's the way we're going to have to look at it. So I would say we probably wouldn't, if it were voting today, we would probably have a nay vote for us.
I want to say something fundamentally, more fundamental what we're talking about. If you gentlemen and ladies look at what you received in your email, page 2, membership structure number 1 is different than the slide. It's not that it's different, but it's presented differently. Do you know what I fundamentally see, but at one glance, what is really wrong here in this selection process? Look at all of the voting group that they have selected, 13 or whatever it is. Yeah, 13. What does it say at the end of each of those? It says the first one, something to watershed management and or climate adaptation. The third one says natural resources, sustainability, and or climate or related issues. The third one, or current and future risk from changing environment. The next one says current and future risks as a result of a changing environment. On and on. Ladies and gentlemen, I am a naturalist by nature. An approach like this is telling me that this is directed in only one direction, environmental. Fine, it is one leg of the table. If you start on this premise, that is ultimately the criteria to select an academician, a resiliency seat, an economic development seat, a health and social sector seat. If that is going to be one of the criteria, we are going to come up with skewed solutions. It's not addressing holistically. It's not addressing the whole picture. I mean, you know, and politics and government is a very strong leg in the table. We cannot ignore it. And I agree with all of the speakers earlier, in this process that was just described, there's going to be just one leg trying to hold the whole table. And that to me is very problematic. That's all what I have to say.
Hello, this is Major Coleman speaking. I haven't heard, when we first started this thing, and I keep saying this, and everybody's worried about who gets the vote and who's going to vote for this, and our parents are going to be represented. But they told me when we started this thing that data is going to drive it, so then there's no vote. The data is going to drive the projects. So if we let the data drive the projects and everybody agree to the data driving the projects, then what's best for each region, the data is going to determine that. So are we getting away from letting the data drive the projects? It seems like that's what everybody's concerned about. And I know I am because I don't have all the expertise. You know, St. Helena Parish, we don't have a technical report. I keep saying that. That's why it's so exciting to me that we having this conversation, is because they told me the data was going to drive it. So I can't get the data, but if we have technical support and get the data to showing the region or the state that the data says this is what we need to do to alleviate problems in this region, and then the data should take care of that. Or am I missing something?
Major, this is Steve Kessler at Livingston. I understand what you're saying when it comes to projects, but this is a whole lot more than just projects. You know, as you study the documents and the activities that will occur, this is a much bigger than just projects themselves. And while I agree with what you're saying as far as data driving projects, that's just one function of this group, and there's many others that will require a different course of action rather than just looking at data.
Yeah, this is Bridget, and I want to actually agree regarding Major. I think it's got as much to do with the whole foundation of this. If you read the governor's executive order, it's for us to come up with measurable objectives, and the data is going to guide that. It has to, but ultimately the group that's formed is going to need to come up with the true objectives for the region. And we've got some, our guiding principles for our governance agreement and so on. But there's got to be actionable items that's going to be tied to our watersheds that we are the 8 watersheds. So down the road in the future, we're going to have some buy-in that says we think the solution for this watershed, the Chaffunky Bayou Liberty watershed, would be these types of best practice initiatives to be applied to it, and that the data is going to help us support that that's what we're wanting for the goal for that particular watershed. The Little Natalbany watershed ties into the Tickfall watershed, that we as a collective group for the region have to come up with objectives to minimize flood risk for the residents that live along that watershed corridor collectively. But those objectives are going to have to be measured by data down the road. But before we get the data, because again, they're working on figuring out the data, we're going to be asked for the objectives as a collective group. And I think that is maybe the sticking point regarding the governing agencies, to say we know what those what the real concerns are for our citizens, our communities. So we want to vote at the table to talk about what we think our objectives should be on how we can manage collectively these watersheds that affect our residents and our constituents. And granted, we need the expertise and those experts at the table also to give guidance and maybe even have a vote, because they feel passionate about what the true objective needs to be as well. But I think that's part of it, is the data is going to get us to the means to the end. But before we can get the data, we're going to have to come up with some possible objectives that we envision seeing happening for each of these collective 8 watersheds in our region.
This is John Leo with the Transition Committee. I wanted to ask a question primarily to Ross, a remark that Ross made a moment ago, but I think it would probably also be relevant for the rest of you who have already spoken about your concerns with respect to what I would say fairly is inadequate or second-class representation of political subdivisions, parish and municipalities within the voting membership, well, exclusion from the voting membership, and therefore second-class status with respect to the structures altogether. And so let me just ask for Ross, and then if you others have comments as well to answer my question, it'll help us better appreciate where you're coming from. Would it, for instance, Ross, make a difference if the voting membership structure were to be changed to not subtract from voting membership status, for instance, in number 1, any of the 13 that are identified there, but rather add to it 13, and I'm speaking only hypothetically. I have not discussed this with any of my other transition team members, but I'm just trying to understand your concerns. Would it make a difference if to those existing 13 were added an additional 13 that would be specified as representatives of each of the 13 parishes within Region 7 for them to appoint as they see fit? In other words, each parish would have the authority.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. I think that would be overly burdensome to have 26 voting members. I think 13, one coming from each parish to fulfill the roles as presented. Like I said, we could submit one application for all 13 roles, but know we're only going to get one of them. To me, in my mind, that just solves the problem.
So you mean each of the 13 parishes would look at those 13 categories that are identified as part of the membership structure in number 1, and the parishes themselves would have the authority to select 13 candidates. Is that correct?
Correct.
Of which one
Correct.
for each of the seats would ultimately be chosen.
Correct.
Okay, and would you contemplate the solicitation for applications process within each parish for those 13 identified seats being as open and widespread as possible?
Yes.
Okay, no, I appreciate that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Earl with St. Charles. Can I answer that question from my point of view? I agree with the fact that 26 would be burdensome. It's way too big of a committee. But I would also not support the idea of having to fit my parish president or my parish's nominees into categories. I mean, you know, we're the ones that are ultimately responsible for this. If it floods, you know, in the next 3 days with this hurricane, nobody's calling this watershed committee to scream at them. They're going to call it us and scream at them. So, you know, it's us that bears that responsibility. So, you know, I think we should be the voting members. That's my opinion. That's my parish's opinion.
I concur.
This is Tom Stevens. I hadn't spoken yet, but I've been watching this ever since we began, and I really have to think that we need to look towards the Regional Planning Commission and the way they formed committees for transportation, and look at a technical policy committee made up of these officials that have to spend the money and be responsible for the decisions they make for the people and the money, and have a advisory committee of all of these experts that can feed information to them to make rational decisions. I don't see how you can get away from what the Planning Commission did to solve basically the same problem years ago with transportation issues. It's the same kind of problem on a different topic.
I think that's really helpful, Tom. And I'm curious if your experience or expertise or just interacting with that group in particular, or anybody else who's on the line, what are some ways that you might improve what Tom is talking about that? Or does that sound like something that is seasonable or interesting to other folks that are on the call? I see Jay Clark. I don't know if that's, is that you, John? Your hand's up, and so if you want to come off mute, feel free.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we share the same sentiment as Livingston, Ascension, St. James, and East Baton Rouge, and the Amite River Basin Commission, and so forth, who have made those concerns as a parish. Iberville, we have a problem becoming a non-voting member of our own parish and our own regional drainage. And also, too, no one, if it goes as it is, no one on the panel is accountable to the voters and local constituents except us. They're not. And also, too, in the beginning, when we first selected steering committee members, there was a selection criteria based on various categories of expertise and skill sets from each part of the parish, whether you were a floodplain manager or a natural resource professional or so forth. So I thought we covered that part of it. And lastly, being Iberville Parish, we're in 3 different regions: Region 5, Region 6, and Region 7. So for us, you know, having 3 different sets of bylaws, 3 different voting structures, it's getting real messy. So I hope OCD is listening into our cries, you know, that we're just trying to, with all due respect, appreciate the process and thankful for what is going on and that we do have what we have. But I just think we need to take a second look at this, and nobody knows on the ground knowledge better than the local parish and local officials. Like as right now, as we're preparing for this hurricane that's coming straight, hit us straight in the nose, you know, hopefully not, but we're doing it. And after it's over, we're stuck with the cleanup. So that's just our concerns. And when it comes to drainage, it's the same thing. That's all.
If I may, one more question to the parish representatives who have been speaking in the last few minutes about these. It's first of all, let me just say from the transition team's perspective, it's extremely useful to get your comments and understand where you're coming from. I mean, that's what this process is designed to do. And I want to express my appreciation to you for that. Let me just ask, if I may, a big picture question, regardless of who is a voting member and who is not. When each of you looks at the specifications, qualifications identified in each of those 13 seats in membership structure 1, are there any sets of qualifications, any way in which each of those 13 are defined when you think of a human being sitting in the chair that possesses those skill sets that you feel is worthless or unnecessary or would not contribute meaningfully to the process? What I'm trying to get at here is to what extent you would agree or disagree that the input to officials of parishes that are within this region needs to be as multidisciplinary and diverse as possible. That's the focus of the question.
Mr. Johnson, if I may speak, you know, we fear that we have nothing against those type disciplines by no means, and we rely on that every day to make decisions. But as a former employee of the state, I used to feel like we were always at that 30,000 foot level and never really got down on the ground. We never really got out of the planning phase and done any type of construction with the parish and what we referred to as our local stakeholders. And so, you know, we are the local stakeholders and we represent those. We're accountable to them, and nobody knows it better than we do. And, you know, with this type of setup, as dynamic as it and restructured as it is, you know, from the planning to the committees to the workshops and the stage, I'm concerned, will we ever do any construction?
I think I want to jump in here really quick, John, and also just, you know, remind folks about our governance recommendation. This group isn't going to be building things. It's not in our recommendation, right? This group, with respect to projects, talks about capacity building activities. So that's sitting down with parishes and bringing folks together across jurisdictions to provide capacity building support for the purpose of regional projects, and then being able to compete in different processes. So we're not constructing things. Katie, I see your hands raised. Twee, you're on mute.
Katie, you can go first. I just have a question for the parishes regarding the expected dynamic between the body and the parishes. But Katie, if you want to ask your question first, I think mine will take a little bit more discussion.
No worries. Thank you all for your feedback today. It's really great to learn and listen to you all. One question that I have sort of flips us in a slightly different direction. But sort of with the statewide watershed initiative and with the idea behind these bodies is not to sort of supplant parish and municipal authority, but sort of look to supplement it and think about a way that sort of, hasn't been thought about before, looking across jurisdictional boundaries to increase coordination, but not to sort of take away existing authority that people have. Has anyone thought about, or does anybody have ideas in terms of how a membership structure could be structured to sort of meet these goals of regionalism, while also making you all feel confident and comfortable that your parishes and your authorities as elected officials or staffers are being insured and represented? So do you have ideas that sort of haven't come up that we could sort of think about in putting together a proposed membership structure that sort of satisfy both of these goals and making sure that you all are represented and comfortable with your representation through voting membership or whatever it may be, but also seeking to move sort of the ball forward in terms of thinking about how you can enhance and work towards this regional vision?
Probably the easiest thing is to flip the script. In other words, your non-voting group should be your voting group. And those 7 seats that you're talking about on the bottom, the partners and experts in regional work, those 7 seats should be an application based, and they should have experience from what you considered originally the voting group. That way, each parish is guaranteed representation on the board and a voice. And they can rely on a few others that should be representing the group as a whole.
This is Bridget and representing Tangipahoa Parish. I have to agree with Ryan to a certain extent, and maybe those 7, if you wanted to expand voting membership, well, then you would have a total of 20. That would be the 13 parish appointed representatives, and then your 7 experts, if you will. And I know that there's been more fleshed out in what was suggested in either structure 1 or 2 about the members. And I appreciate what Jonathan mentioned about, is there any representative that you guys outlined that we felt may not be as beneficial to be part of the body? Maybe send out those in a poll and have the steering committee members rank the top 4 that they feel are vital to be those experts that may be voting members as well. So I don't know if you want to have 20 as a total, so you make your non-voting expert members voting members with alongside those 13 parish representatives, and you have a total of 20. And of course, if you're looking at having a quorum, you'd have to have 11 voting members present and or voting in favor of something, anything that would be recommended or whatever the votes would be regarding. You'd have to have at least 50 plus 1. So you'd have to have 11 of those members at that point, rather than only needing to have 7.
I would think the 7 members would be non-voting that would be representing. So you have the 13 seats would be the ones voting, but the 7 seats extra would be the ones that would be non-voting members, and they would be from one of those groups above. So they'd have to have some kind of specific background. And then at that point, if they need any other technical knowledge, they can always outsource to someone else.
My only concern with this, I like the proposal when it comes down to the 7 experts, if we can call them, or subject matter experts. I wonder if they are non-voting, if that's enough skin in the game for them to be as committed to this project. So I'd be open to looking at that both ways.
John, just in answer to your question a while ago, of the 2 lists, I would suggest getting rid of the academic and the lawyer, because I think that's going to be a duplication within the group you've defined anyway. So I think the 11 members in structure 2 would be more than adequate. And that would, by the time you're done, that includes an academic and a lawyer just by default of who's going to be interested in those things.
I believe that this requires a little time. We are so used now to the Zoom. We cannot Zoom this. We're talking about serious business. And I believe, I don't know how, or honestly, I wish I had an answer or something, but this requires to sit around the table maybe. And it has to be done if we can get a representative group or something like that, that will look at this and think about it. As you talk, everybody's talking, everybody's thinking at the same time. we are very spontaneous in our responses. And this requires to really, I mean, you guys, with all respect, the Water Initiative has taken all this time to put this together. There should have been some feedback in the process. This has been all of a sudden dumped on our laps, in my lap at least, and we are supposed to come up with solutions in 5 minutes. I don't believe that. I believe that is wrong and is disrespectful, honestly. I said, we need to take some time and look at this.
I disagree with the assessment, you know, from Dietmar. This is the step in that which is presented to us from the transition team for us to consider. There is no vote today. This is for feedback, and we will have more time to digest this and make additional comments. So this is the format where it's presented to the steering committee for consideration. So I don't believe it's been dumped in our lap other than, I mean, this is the first meeting of this topic.
Yeah, I have to agree with
Yeah, and
Rob.
I would add just that from coming from the state, that Rachel made it clear too that this is a proposal, this is a conversation. We're not asked to make a decision today, and we assume, or we are expecting, that each region and each steering committee they're formulating a decision and formulating how this coalition is going to stand up. And this is not something that happens overnight, but it takes work and it takes thought, and then it takes vetting that thought, and that's what's happening. So I also disagree with your assessment, Dietmar.
And on the same topic, I do want to thank the transition team again for all their hard work. I know they're getting hammered today, but somebody had to step up and come up with these ideas to present to the steering committee. So I want to thank them for all their hard work over the past probably 2 months or so.
This is,
Thanks,
can you hear me?
Ross. And I
Rachel?
think, yeah, please.
Rachel,
Go ahead.
this is Larry Bankston. I would urge everyone to reach out to their legislative delegation. There is no way in the world that what has been proposed to us would ever even get out of committee as proposed to us. You could consider reversing in Schedule 1, the voting and the non-voting, but you know, indigenous individuals, 1 or 2 on a committee, and there's no one from a parish. I've lived here a long time. I'm not aware of any indigenous people in our region, but
your chairman is one.
All right, so we're gonna put somebody on the committee because of who they are. That doesn't make any sense. And we really need to be in the real world, and the real world would say, this is dead on arrival.
Hey, this is Earl from St. Charles. May I make a specific request?
Yeah, please, Earl. And then I also just want to address the interaction that took place. So please speak, and then I want to address it.
Okay. And again, I need to apologize to the transition team too, guys. I know you guys worked hard on this. You looked at everything, and you know, part of the motivation was to change how things are done, and you know, I get that, and flipping that script does indeed do that. But just putting all of us on the same committee at the same time talking about these issues, which we've never done before, is a pretty big change. So, I mean, the whole project is a change. But my specific request would be, I would love to see a third proposal with the assumption that the parishes be at least on, if not the extent of the voting body, and see what that structure in your format would look like.
Yeah, thank you, Earl. I really appreciate that. And we're on the same page there. That's one of the next steps that I was going to be presenting to y'all. And I do just want to recognize what just took place. So I think, you know, well, I guess I think, but also research and data tells us that Indigenous peoples have a lot of knowledge. And there are Indigenous peoples who live within Region 7 in particular. And we also had a conversation with the individual who's the chairperson of the Native American Commission. And she had instructed us that if those seats were available, people would fill them. And I think also, I do want to recognize for individuals that are on this call right now, how harmful it could perhaps be to recognize or to perhaps not recognize that there are Indigenous peoples who live in this region. And so I think, you know, Larry, if you would like to clarify what you had just brought up about Indigenous peoples not living in this region, or if you would like to perhaps change a statement that you just made, I think that I want to make space for that.
Sure, there's no question there may or may not be Indigenous people, but to grant them a specific dedicated 1 or 2 spots when there's not the first member of a council or parish on the committee is just ludicrous. That's the point, not the fact that they shouldn't be considered for representation, but to eliminate all the parishes is craziness.
May I ask a question of every parish representative here? This is Twee, by the way. As we're going forward and perhaps putting together a third proposal, like you said, Mr. Mathern, I'd like to ask what everyone's anticipating to be the dynamic between the parishes and this governing body. Because I think that might be where the disconnect is coming, is it boils down to how much authority this body would essentially have. And obviously that's dependent upon the legislature. But in your opinion, where do you see that dynamic going, so we can keep that in mind as we are coming up with a third proposal for you?
This is Earl. I'll tell you what I think. I think the dynamic that this entire committee should create is the idea that we look at, especially bigger projects. And my forte is coastal restoration projects. When we look at them, other than just what we know we need to do. In other words, I know that I need, this piece of shoreline needs to be fixed. And I know that, and that's my job to go get it for St. Charles. But at the same time, occasionally we'll talk to St. John or Lafourche and say, hey guys, you want to participate in this? But this is a formal committee where we can sit down and say, hey guys, we want to do this. It's a better project if it goes into your parish. Do we want to cooperate in that? Or the other way around, like, hey, St. Charles, stop doing that. You're hurting us. And that's just not a formal, we don't have a formal scenario for that right now, other than the permit process, which is a terrible time to learn about it. So, from a dynamic standpoint of view, this committee should represent where parishes are actually cooperating amongst each other, amongst things we all know need to get done.
Okay, that actually gives a lot of perspective, because I think going into this, part of our consideration is that this governing body might just be making recommendations. And so we wanted to be a resource to you all in terms of saying, hey, this is what the other parishes are doing, this is what's going on, this is what the data says, and this is the best way going forward for everyone to help the maximum number of parishes is the most possible. And that was the path we had before us for that, to enable this to be a resource to you all. But I think for hearing from you, it seems that you all have a different perspective than we had regarding your active participation. There's it being less of a resource and more of a vehicle to foster that coordination and communication between the parishes. Does that sound right, Mr. Mathern, is what I got from you?
Well, I think the thing I'm pointing out to you is that if you put a committee together of people that my elected body and elected officials have absolutely no say in, that recommendation will come like every other recommendation from a committee we don't know. If the parish of St. Charles is voting for something, then when that decision, the actual decision to spend money, comes in front of my parish council, You know, we can say, look, we as a parish have discussed this and we want to participate in it, not we're being told we should participate or not.
Okay.
I'd like to add to that. This is Steve Kistler from Livingston. I don't know whether you've noticed this or not, but this whole exercise that we've been going through has already fostered an increase in communication amongst the people that have their boots on the ground and the ones that will be able to make things happen when it comes down to it. Now I have a list of people that I have an automatic connection with, and I've picked up the phone and used that connection. And as we meet as committees, and especially if we get to meet in person, those relationships will get stronger, and therefore the cooperation amongst the people who are going to be responsible for doing these projects and therefore want the ability to have a say and a vote. As we go forward, those relationships will get stronger and the working relationships will get better. But by marginalizing the people who actually have to do the work, so to speak, when it comes down to the projects, you will hurt that communication that this exercise has fostered to this point.
I want to add to that, that whatever committee, Steve, that you talk about, you're correctly, absolutely correctly. Human relations, human communication. When you said that you have established connections, you know, we have established connections and so on, is absolutely correct. When you say we need to form this committee, what I want to remind everybody that these committees then have to be localized in terms of the watershed. We're talking about watershed 7, which is composed of 7 watersheds or 8. The problems of watershed in Tangipahoa Parish, the Chefongta, whatever over there, this is completely separate from the problems in Baton Rouge. So the committee in Baton Rouge has to make the decisions in Baton Rouge. The parishes affected in this my basin, called the Emigrant River Basin, that should be the geographical unit on the basis of you form the committee, because they are sharing that same problem, which is the Emigrant River and the Commit River. In Tangipahoa,
right, y'all.
Different situation, except one case when we got the southeast surge, that all that water from everywhere, from the Gulf and everybody hits the coast. That is a little bit different. A point I want to make is when Steve says committee, it's not so much a committee for Region 7. It has to be committees for each watershed. It might be 3 parishes in some cases, 4 parishes in other, 5 parishes in other.
We'll definitely keep that going forward. I think we have to move on at this point now. So Rachel, I'll turn it over to you.
First, thanks y'all so much for the really great discussion, and thanks to especially to our transition team for helping to facilitate that. I think I'm hearing a couple of different things. I think I'm hearing some stuff loud and clear from y'all. Thank you also, Earl, for the suggestion to go back to the drawing board. That's certainly what the transition team is going to be doing, and we're going to come back in September. But I do want to open up to the group who that is a steering committee member would like to be a part of that transition team. So I think there's a suggestion to have a group of people to get together to do this, and we already have a facilitated space for that. So this is the open invitation, with the expectation that it does mean, you know, Twee and Katie and John and Ivy and myself and the other transition team members have been meeting on a more frequent basis, and as well as putting in some time outside of those meetings to draft the documents. So who would like to step up to the plate?
Can you email you?
Yeah, you can email me afterwards, or you can feel free to let me know now. You can put your name in the chat pod.
Well, since Ascension opened and maybe kicked the beehive here, I will put us as willing to participate and put in some of that hard work.
You count me, Dietmar.
Steve Kistler from Livingston would be willing to participate also.
All right, anybody else?
Rachel, I don't have a problem. I would love to do that too, please.
Perfect. All right, I see Ryan too. All right. Might as well make the transition team the steering committee. I love it. Okay, y'all, enough from me. Really, again, thank y'all for the time and the feedback. This is extraordinarily helpful, and I think that, you know, we're hearing y'all loud and clear, and I'm really confident that, especially with these new folks joining the transition team, that we can come up with something that's going to work for everybody. So I'm going to toss it over now to our friends at the state to give us some program updates. Brad and Nicolette, also feel free to share screen.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Yeah, I just wanted to give, I don't have a slide, but I wanted to give an update on the model use storage and maintenance plan. So we are about to, oh, thank you. So the state is about to release this, we're calling it the museum plan for model use storage and maintenance plan. And if you are on the LWI listserv, then you should be emailed a press release and a link to the plan. And this plan will outline kind of different approaches for managing the watershed models once they're completed. And the approaches range from fully centralized to fully regionalized. And it also includes several variations in between. So now we are officially launching, once the plan is released, we're going to officially launch a public comment period, 60 days. And the goal for the public comment period is really to inform the state and help guide decision making and potentially choose kind of one of these approaches or a blending of these approaches. We really want to identify the most effective strategy in order to sustain the use, storage, and maintenance of the H&H models. So we are planning to host two what we're calling virtual public hearings or webinars. It's not necessarily a webinar, it's more of a public hearing. We're going to go over the plan and then ask for your feedback. And so the first will be August 31st, that's Monday, and hopefully that date won't be changed due to weather, but we're planning on hosting the first webinar on, is it Monday or Tuesday actually? It could be Tuesday. I'm sorry.
Tuesday.
And it's Tuesday, okay. And then the second would be the 24th. And so these, if you want to register for these hearing sessions, you can go online to watershed.la.gov and go to the calendar or get involved page, and you'll see registration links for each of these webinars. And this is an opportunity to submit public comment. And I think there should also be on the webpage also instructions on how to submit written comments. And so that's it for the update on the model use storage and maintenance plan. I'm not sure if you have any other slides related to it, Rachel.
Can I jump to nature-based solutions?
Go ahead.
Okay, so thank you all for hanging in there. So the working group, LWI's working group, identified a gap in kind of knowledge about natural functions projects versus traditional mitigation approaches. And since the mission of LWI is to maximize the natural and beneficial functions of the floodplain, the state identified a need for kind of a capacity building webinar series on nature-based solutions for different types of flood risk at different scales, regional, urban, and which is really exciting that starting in September, there's going to be the first webinar of Module 1, which is kind of an introduction overview of different types of nature-based solutions and kind of unintended consequences of traditional approaches, and a case study on the Vermilion River research from Dr. Habib, who's been an integral part of the modeling team. So stay tuned for that e-blast that's coming out. The first module is September. Thank you.
Thanks, Brad. And I also have an update slide in here on the round 2 design support, as well as RCBG phase 2. I think Nicolette had to hop off, but would you be okay with giving a update on those?
Sure, and I'll be brief since it's been a long call. The policies and procedures for both of these programs, the round 2 design support pilot, which is going to take applications from round 1 that were submitted recently and announced recently. The state is going to select an additional around $100 million worth of projects that, in order to create more of a geographical fairness where projects are located and really look into LMI and flood, like high flood risk need of projects. And they're going to look at the projects that were ineligible or incomplete, the applications that were incomplete from round 1, and offer design support. And some of that design support may offer natural functions solutions to enhance the project application. So that should be happening this fall, and we'll definitely let you know when the policies and procedures are released. And now transitioning to round 2, phase, I know a lot of numbers, phase 2 for regional capacity building grant program. The council approved an addition to this grant, which is $800,000 per watershed region to continue the funding of standing up the Watershed Coalition. So, LWI is committed to the work that you all have done and the collaboration that's been put into place thus far. And, we appreciate all the concerns and sentiments, and we hope that ultimately we can work toward an official legislatively authorized Watershed Coalition next year. So hopefully this second round of funding will help to ensure some of that work gets to move forward. And again, those policies and procedures will be published this fall. So stay tuned for more information about that.
Thanks, Brad. And I think we do have a couple of minutes for questions, if anybody has questions on those before we move to the public comment section. I'm not hearing any questions. And also, we're going to make sure that all this information gets sent out. I know that folks, in particular within your networks, you might be really interested in making sure that folks within your network are able to listen into those model use storage maintenance plan webinars, be able to provide comments on those, as well as really tap into the nature-based solutions training that OCD has put together. So we'll be making sure that we get that information sent around to everybody. And then I think also we would like to open up this time for feedback, and would also like to invite people today, if you are tuning in virtually, and well, everybody is, sorry. But yeah, if you would like to provide feedback on our pluses and deltas board, feel free to do so. So I'm going to put that link in the chat pod, but I'm going to actually pause here and open it up for public comment. We've got just a little over 10 minutes. somebody is talking right now, you're on mute, so just want to also flag that just in case. Okay. Well, I'm not hearing anything from anybody, but as always, y'all know how to get a hold of me. Please feel free to email me, call me, and we can certainly continue the conversation. As we know, this is always the continuation of a conversation. So I think we got to do a couple of different things, but I wanted to provide some reminders. Please, if you've already taken your ethics certification, or if you already have your ethics certification, please send that to me. We got to have those on file and on record for folks. If you haven't taken it, maybe it's a good reminder to take it. Somebody had to remind me a couple weeks ago, so I know that people get busy. And also just wanted to say that our next meeting is going to be September 28th from 1 to 3:30. We are going to be monitoring COVID-19 and just see if it looks like we can have a hybrid situation or if it needs to be virtual. So just stay tuned. Ross and Bridget and I are going to really work hard to figure out what's going to be the best potential option from a public health perspective, as well as for this committee. And then I think just, for whatever Tropical Depression 9 ends up being, we just really hope that y'all are safe. But I think Ross and Bridget, those are everything that I had.
Yeah, do we need to adopt the, well, I see it on the agenda, adopt the minutes from July 22nd? All right, can I get a motion to adopt the minutes?
Can we accept the minutes?
All right, motion from Ronnie, can I get a second?
Steve Kissler will second.
Second from Steve Kissler. Any opposed? Hearing none, meeting minutes are adopted. I just do want to say thanks again to the transition team. They answered the call 2 months ago to start working on this and feel like they kind of got hammered today. So again, this is the first meeting based on their attempt at getting this right. So great feedback today, and I'm sure we'll, have input for the next meeting. Bridget?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I really do appreciate the transition team providing us with options. I know that it takes a lot of time, and I have to say that writing bylaws and drafting this kind of stuff, to me personally, is more along the lines of statistics. Nothing that I ever really want to sit through. So I know it takes a lot of dedication and research, and they really did pull some stuff together. And I hate that it did seem like we really hammered them today. But I appreciate even the steering committee members that give up more of their time to actually give feedback and guidance on this, the drafts that were brought to us today.
All right, and thanks to Rachel and her team, CRPC. They always do a great job. So obviously want to thank them and everybody that they pull in to help in this effort. So Rachel, any last comments you need to make?
No, that's it. Just stay safe out there, y'all. Appreciate you.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Hurricane's coming. Farewell, everybody. Hope y'all community stay safe, and we will see y'all in a month. Meeting's adjourned.
I think we got to do a motion to adjourn, though. We
Motion
got to do
to
that part.
adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, Earl.
All right, can I get a second?
Seconded by Bridget.
Second by Bridget. All in favor?
Aye.
Let's do it. See y'all next time.
Aye.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, y'all. Bye.